The Lord be with you. Fabulous to be with all of you this morning. Thank you so much for fitting this in. Before we begin, let's do a really brief prayer for our sibling in spirit, Scott Planting. Scott Planting is in Maine this weekend because he is holding a memorial service with so much family. It was yesterday for his dearly beloved wife, Marcia. And so that's why he is out this week and this weekend. But he is surrounded by family and his main friends, which is so great, up there. And so let us hold Scott and the entire Planting family in prayer.
Just hold on to it, honey.
Loving God, we give you such thanks for those who
hold on to
came
it to make it,
for their love, for their
or you hold on to make it
Please
louder.
be with the Planting family as they grieve and as they celebrate the life of Marcia together. In your holy name we pray. Amen. So that is why Scott's not with us this morning, but we have an incredible panel with us this morning to do a few things.
Some idiot woman.
One is to, is to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the film Remember the Titans. Who in here has seen the film Remember the Titans? Anybody not seen the film Remember the Titans? You can take, yes, thank you. Thank you. Have you both seen it? No.
She didn't turn on off her video.
That's all right. It's a great movie, PG, right? So it's pretty cool. It celebrates a football team that that played at TC Williams here in Alexandria in 1971. Is that right? 1971, starring Denzel Washington, Hayden Panettiere. Is that how you say your last name? Panettiere. And Ed Wood. Ed Wood is amazing in the movie. Yeah. And so anyway, but also we have people on our panel, and I will let them explain their connection when it's their turn. But that have either strong relationships, close ties to TC Williams during that era, or have close ties to the legacy of racial integration at TC Williams. And so it's pretty fun to be with this amazing panel today. I'm serious. I'm serious. Come on, this is outstanding. One thing that I have to say, one thing. So I have this amazing letter written to Susan and myself from a man named John Komorowski. Am I saying that right? John Komorowski, local legend. He very involved in both the history of TC and Alexandria City. And does anyone know what the original intended name, the mascot of TC was going to be? They are the Titans, right? Remember the Titans. But that was not the first choice. Anybody know what the first choice was?
Blue Devils.
Close. Think University of Southern California. They were going to be the Trojans. Oh, I know. But whose idea was it to be the Titans? John's, exactly. And so thankfully, we don't have Remember the Trojans, right? We have, right? We have, thank goodness, I agree. We have Remember the Titans. And so in that spirit of both the local history, the way that it continues to weave itself in our sacred lives together, let us come together in prayer, and then I will introduce our first speaker. Let us pray. Loving God, for the way that you work with us, through us, often in spite of us, the way you inspire us to do great works in the world, in your holy name, we give you great thanks and praise. Amen. Our first speaker today is Jane Ring. Round of applause for Jane Ring. Please do give her respect. Everybody respect when they are up here. I know she demands it. Absolutely. Jane is a long-term member of Westminster, right?
60 years.
60 years. Hey now. Due to her relationship with Connie, her husband, who was on the school board during some of this school realignment and integration, she has intimate history of a lot of what was happening at a very high level in town, in the school board, and within the school district during these 65 to 71 era, correct? Yes. And so, friends, it's my honor to introduce our first speaker on our panel today, Jane Ring. Jane.
My voice is not great today, so I hope you can hear. Yeah, Connie's nickname came from his middle name, which was Conwell. So you'll understand. When I met him, I kept hearing about Connie Ring is coming, Connie. I said, what's she like? And they said, wrong, she's a he. Anyway, he was from a family of educators. He was the only one. He thought he was the black sheep in the family because he didn't go into teaching. Well, when he was in law school at Duke, he did teach a couple classes in business law. And Sonny Jurgensen was one of his patients. Okay. He was appointed to the school board in 1969. And another member of Westminster was Chuck Beatley at the time and was one of the votes that got him onto the school board. Now it's an elected school board, but back then it was appointed. Alexandria back then was very much a southern town and had a lot of southern, and I'm ashamed to say, feelings back then. But anyway, the school board decided that it would start the desegregation process without the federal government having to tell them to. And the head of the school board, chair of the school board, was Bill Hurd. And we had a public hearing of 3,000 people over in the high school. And it spilled out from the auditorium down to the cafeteria and standing room only. Bill Hurd slammed his fist on the dais and said, we're going to bus just as many white kids as we do black kids. And Connie said, you know, you better be careful how we do that. We want a desegregated school system. And if you're not careful, you're going to have a segregated school system. And unfortunately, Connie was right. Over the summer, between 4,000 and 5,000 kids exited the school system. Some to private schools, some to move to Fairfax County because they weren't having the same situation. Then I think Coach Boone was brought here late 1970. And unfortunately, the movie indicates that the school board said, Coach Boone, you either win the state championship or you're out of here. Well, that never happened. In fact, a lot of things weren't true about the movie. It had the gist of it. It was a good movie. But for instance, it was filmed in South Georgia. It had the school board indicating they had to win a state championship. And there were just a lot of things. As an aside, I don't know, 15 years ago, Coach Boone rented a bus to take some of us old school board folks, former football players, former cheerleaders, anyway, up to Gettysburg College because the college had planted a tree and plaqued it in memory of the 1971 Titan team. Anyway, Coach Boone never saw a microphone he didn't like, and he stood up as we're going up to Pennsylvania and said, I kept telling them that's not the way it went. That's not the way it went. And finally, the Disney guy said, Coach Boone, this movie isn't about you. And he said, Denzel Washington was playing me. I thought it was about me. Anyway, these were really troubled times. During that time, as I say, there were 3,000 people at a public hearing. There was lots of controversy. And I can remember we had a mail slot in our door. I remember lots of hate mail coming through our mail slot. In fact, when Connie was out of town, I would often be really afraid for my safety. But when the desegregation started, Connie, who was, not very tall, maybe 5'8" or 9, and Dick Hills, who was one of the associate superintendents. And he was a huge man, 6'6", probably 300 pounds. Connie and Dick would go to Hammond High School and help the children off the bus in order to keep the parents from throwing rocks at them. I mean, it was a bad time at that point. Fortunately, they fought through those times, and we've come out a lot better for it. And that's basically all I have to say. I'm so glad those bad times are gone. So.
Thank you so much, Jane. Just since I don't think I explained it well earlier, we're going to have each of our panelists speak, and then there will be time for questions at the end. And so, Jane, that was lovely. Thank you so much. Our next panelist is Maggie Chamberlain. Now, Maggie Chamberlain is a UVA alum. Hey, there we go. I was hoping for some of that. Yes. With a minor in African American Studies, correct? Also, T.C. Williams alum. And class president, right? Think of that. So many hats. So many hats. It's pretty. Aaron Burr never got to be president. Maggie Chamberlain got to be president. Maggie, wonderful to have you. Everyone, Maggie Chamberlain.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie Chamberlain. Like Jacob said, I am the famous Patty Chamberlain's daughter. I wear many hats just like my mom does. So I was born and raised here in Alexandria. I attended James K. Polk Elementary School and then Francis C. Hammond Middle School. And then I am a proud graduate of T.C. Williams. I graduated in 2016. And as Jacob said, I was class president, and I'm therefore now planning my 10-year high school reunion. So that's going well. I really enjoyed growing up in this city. I am so grateful for this place where I call home. I still actually live in DC, couldn't get away. And I am especially grateful for the opportunities that I was given being raised in such a diverse area. When I was younger, my cousins from St. Louis were in town, and they were going through our yearbook and said, "Where are all the white kids?" And I didn't even think about it, because growing up in this area, we were just students. We were friends, and that's not something a lot of people got. In high school, and especially middle school and elementary school, I was the minority. Most people didn't look like me in my classes. But again, that's something that I'm grateful for. It shaped me who I am. And when I went to UVA, wahoo wah, I realized that I was in a place where everyone looked like me. And I didn't like that. I didn't want that. I wanted new ideas. I wanted differing opinions. And so that's why I decided to minor in African American Studies. I wanted to be in a classroom where I was able to learn from people with different backgrounds from me. And so I'm, like I said, very grateful to have been raised in this area. It was a very unique and special experience. My fun fact is often that I went to the high school that is Remember the Titans. That's in that movie. And I'm happy to answer any questions as we get on later after Miss McAdoo.
Well, Miss McAdoo is next. Susan McAdoo. So what's really fun about Susan is that she was a student in Alexandria City Schools during this time. during the time of, remember the Titans, during the time of school integration. And so, or in bringing 3 high schools together in one. That's ultimately what happened, right? Is bringing 3 high schools together in one at TC. And so, Susan, welcome. Susan McAdoo.
Thank you, Jacob. So I'm going to start off telling you all a little bit about my history. I grew up in a military family, and we moved to Alexandria in 1961. We had been living up in New York at West Point for 3 years, and so we moved down to Alexandria. And we had a lot of ties here. My grandmother was an elementary school teacher at Mount Vernon. And that's why we came here to Westminster, because she was a member of the church then. And so when I started out, I came to MacArthur, and I was at that time, MacArthur went up to 7th grade. So in 7th grade, I was at MacArthur. Then I was moved to another school, which does not exist anymore here in Alexandria. It was called Duke Street School, and it was at the end of Quaker Lane and where it meets Duke Street. Now there's a baseball field there. So that school was a 1 classroom school, and I'm assuming that all the white kids went there and all the African Americans went to Charles Houston. So we were only there 1 year. And then the next year, they split us all up in our districts to go to either Hammond or GW. So then I went to Hammond for a year. And then they decided that the middle schools were overcrowded. I mean, the high schools were overcrowded, and that we needed to have another high school. So TC was built, and some of us at that time went to TC, and TC also had kids from GW and Parker Gray, which was the 3rd high school. So now Alexandria has 4 high schools. Pretty amazing. So our class was sophomores. The quote unquote seniors were juniors, and they had a freshman class. So they had a freshman, sophomore, and junior year. The junior year class got to graduate from the same high school in 2 years and not go through the 4 schools like a lot of us 8th graders at the time, or 7th graders at the time. So that's so we were all new to TC, and and it was a really small high school at that time. There weren't that many kids, and it was very nice. It was lovely. I mean, everybody was friends. We were all new. We all, started on the same foot, basically. There was no tensions, none that I know of, in my 2 years there, because I graduated in 1968. We were just all friends, and it was, we were developing the sports programs, new teachers. Everybody was brand new. So it was exciting. And the school was brand new. As John said in his little letter to Jacob, it was kind of the state-of-the-art school at the time. They had a huge auditorium that had an orchestra pit. No other school had an orchestra pit at the time. And they had centered the auditorium and the basketball court in the center of the school, and all the classrooms were on the outside of it. So I just wanted to read this little piece from our 50th reunion. We donated a plaque about our time there. And it starts out, the students walked the halls of T.C. William High School in the fall of 1965. From the day it opened its doors, T.C. William was a fully integrated high school. Built because the other public high schools in Alexandria were overcrowded, TC became the home of the original Titans who came from the predominantly white or Black student bodies of Parker Gray, Francis Hammond, and George Washington high schools. The students came together at TC as equals and formed friendships that would last a lifetime. They judged each other on their abilities and character and not by their race. By 1971, the school population in Alexandria had decreased. The city sent all high school age students to TC and turned the remaining high schools into middle schools. It was in this atmosphere that the racial tensions first arose. However, led by the football team, these Titans once again proved that they would trust one another, achieve together, and that would have been impossible to achieve separately. And so this plaque is donated by the class of '68 on its 50th reunion, dedicated to the legacies of the TC Titans High School that represents the courage of students to take for themselves, their willingness to judge others not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. All three of my children graduated from TC. They all had a wonderful experience, and I spoke to them all before coming here today, and all they could say was great things about Coach Boone. Coach Boone was a bigger than life person, and he enveloped all of what TC was about. And he was a character though, too. Thank you.
So I'm going to share a couple of highlights from this letter that John sent me. And then we'll open this up to questions of our panelists, comments, etc. One thing that really struck me was you said that the orchestra pit in the auditorium was so innovative. The orchestra, the entire auditorium was actually based off of a theater set up in Lincoln Center, which just tells you how state of the art it was. In fact, it was a $52 million project, according to John, if you take a look at what the money would be like today, which is fascinating to me because while that's a whole lot of money, the school next door is going to be 70 something. And so just what that means about finances, what that means about inflation, what that means about schools now as opposed to 71 when TC was finished. Yes, please.
They also had a planetarium. We were the only school in the area with a planetarium.
All right, we're going to have to learn more about the planetarium.
One of our members was in charge of it.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Foreshadowing, there will be some planetarium discussion. Anybody in here ever go to a high school dance? Ah, all right. Yeah, me too. Me too. I have a fun little story from John about the first dance ever held at TC. Apparently, some folks didn't think it was a great idea to have a dance, but the students wanted one. And so the dance's sponsor was the chair of the English department. They thought that some of the dancing might have been, and I quote, salacious.
This is Footloose, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Ren, isn't that what his name is? Ren? Anyway, the students disagreed. No surprise. And then this is a quote from John. The dance was put on in the cafeteria and was a success, except that it ended in a down note when a go-go dancer, wait for it, lost her footing, fell off the table. Wait. Go-go dancer on the table. That's just my addition. And then a cage hit her on the head. No high school dance I ever went to, just so we're all on the same page, had people falling off the tables and cages hitting one another on the head. But TC, first dance. I'm loving this. I want to hear about that and the planetarium. But anyway, that was a very fun tidbit. Sounds like a great time, right? Was had at that first dance. Also, the very first play that was held at TC Williams. Anybody know? Oh, that would be great. JC Superstar was not the first play. John doesn't remember. Doesn't sound like anyone else does either. But what I got a huge kick out of was the fact that the second play he remembers, and it was Our Town, which is perfect, right? Absolutely perfect. Not a lot of staging, not a lot of setup needed for a brand new school, brand new theater district, or brand new theater department, excuse me, but certainly gets into community, right? And certainly gets into concepts of what it means to come together. And so I just love that. So thank you to John and Susan. Thank you for organizing that so we could have that fun information. Any questions for our panelists? Yes, Melinda.
I know from, talking with you and Connie for the book I wrote that Connie met, was it every Saturday morning with a group of African-American leaders in the community? Was school desegregation part of those conversations that you remember? And what did they say about how they wanted desegregation?
Did everybody hear that question?
Maybe the people at home.
Yeah. I'm gonna, I'm gonna walk this over to you, Melinda. I'm sorry. Here, you don't get up. Sorry.
Yeah, so from my conversations with Connie and Jane in preparation for the book that I wrote, we talked a lot about how Connie met with a group of African-American leaders in the city on an almost weekly basis on Saturday mornings at the Rings house. And it really gave Connie some insight into what the African-American community was going through. And I just wondered what kinds of conversations I know that you weren't always part of those conversations, but exactly. But if you remember anything that Connie shared about what the Black community wanted from desegregation, what their hopes and aspirations were about that.
By the time we started those weekly breakfasts, Connie was then on city council. And the concern from most of them was affordable housing, which of course it is now. And by that time, I don't think the segregation was as big a subject as affordable housing and good jobs and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm.
Catherine, I saw your hand was up.
My question, I think, is for Maggie, but for any of you. But so I have two kids who are sophomores at AC, not TC anymore, AC, Alexandria City High School. But a little over 5 years ago, when they were entering George Washington Middle School, which is now the middle school for sort of the half the city, we were in orientation, and the principal of GW opened the presentation. Like literally, it was one of the first things he said. He said there's a large middle school, and he described it as diverse and segregated, which I found shocking and refreshing that he named this, right? And it was sort of in the context of all the honors classes in middle school are open enrollment, right? So he was encouraging people to sign up for them because they were really white. And my kids' experience, I think, has matched what he said, right? That they do have a very diverse school, and they have a very diverse set of friends, much more diverse than I had when I was in high school. But it is still a really largely segregated school. Now over a third of the high school is Hispanic. And there's some real, there's a real failure. There's a lot of self-segregation. So I was wondering if you could speak to that and whether that was your experience or not, and whether you see that as problematic or not, or it's sort of an intractable problem, but it's kind of an interesting legacy of this. So I wondered what you thought about that.
Sure.
Question. Thank you. I'm hustling. Sorry.
Okay, I can also yell.
Yeah.
Yes, it was definitely an experience, especially once I got to high school, more so than when I was at Hammond. When I was in middle school, there were like very few white kids in in Hammond, so that was not a thing that really occurred when I was in middle school. But once I got to high school, a lot of the classes were majority white students in them, especially when you got into AP classes. And I know that's still an issue today. I don't know how to I think there's a lot of factors that go into that, as we can all probably imagine, but I know our teachers and our counselors and our administrators were strong advocates for everyone, and but it was definitely an issue and something that I saw when I was still in the system here.
Well, Maggie, you're absolutely right. Nothing has really changed since I was in school. I mean, yes, we're all integrated now, but we're still segregated. And that's been going on for 50 some years.
But I would remind you that one of the best teachers at T.C. Williams was, oh dear, I can't remember his first name, but his last name was Weber. George Weber. He was a marvelous African-American teacher. And we had a foreign student live with us for a year during that time. And obviously English was not his primary language. George Weber would come at 7:30 in the morning every weekday to take Erich to school so that he would be able to compete with his classmates. He was a marvelous teacher.
Other questions for our panelists? Oh, Joanne, yes.
More of a comment. I'm so glad you all are here because I lived during that time and I had my boys in high school and they graduated in 84 and 86, but that was my children. My children came out of TC and they had a wonderful experience, just like you all added. But the thing that impressed me the most, because I was there when all this was going on, was the community of coaches that were so supportive of what they were doing. They knew what their mission was. And they stayed together, and we had our children in each other's basements. And it was just great because there was a track coach, there was a Paul Hines and Mike Henson, and Rob Rixey actually was the team doctor at that time. So it was a wonderful era. But we kind of were out of our element because there was all this stuff going on at the same time. So we really had to go up and beyond what, the norm was, so to speak. And it was a wonderful time. It was a wonderful time to be living with those families and with being involved with those coaches.
Thank you. Oh.
A lot of you know our son, Roddy, who is a banjo picker par excellence. Anyway, when he was in second grade, a class from the projects, which was down in Old Town, and I'm sure went to Charles Houston Elementary School, they were bussed up. Well, you can tell how long ago it was because a quarter would get them an ice cream cone from the Good Humor Man. And one of the African-American kids took Roddy's quarter, and he came home just madder than could be. And the Lord works in mysterious ways. It must have been 72 or 73, because Richard Nixon was in the White House, and a wonderful black couple had come with the administration and had joined Westminster. And they were both in the choir, and the woman was going to sing for the PW, it was called Women of the Church at the time. And so she came down to the house for me to accompany her and get a feel for what that would be like. And she was singing, she had a gorgeous voice, and all of a sudden I could hear these little feet. And then came Roddy, and he's looking up at this African American woman. And when she left, I said, was she the same color as your buddy this morning that stole your money? He said, yeah, and she's not a thing like that. I guess there are some good people like that. And it was an amazing time how people judged each other really a lot on the color of their skins, unfortunately.
Other questions for our panel? While you are all thinking, I have one, and that is that something that ties you all to T.C. Williams and to this place, why you're here in the Haverkamp room, is Westminster. And so a question that I have, and forgive me that it's pastoral, is what was the role of faith like, either A, during that time, or as a student, or maybe even post-school going to UVA and trying to learn more about African-American history? Any thoughts on how the role of faith, or any thoughts on what the role of faith played in any of that?
It's not anything we thought about. It's not anything we thought about. Our faith just came naturally. Is that
Right. Absolutely. My family went to church every Sunday wherever we were posted. So it was just, that's what life was like then.
I mean, I came to youth group every week. Thanks. Yep. Patrick can confirm. Please remind my mom that. So that was a huge part of my life when I was in high school for sure, and middle school, and just growing up as well.
Just a quick comment about Westminster and T.C. Williams High School. Thank you. Before this renovation of Fellowship Hall, we had blue and white linoleum floors, and some of y'all may remember that. But when that was the renovation done by Ernest McKeever, who was head of the Buildings and Ground Committee, the first event held in Fellowship Hall at that time was the football meal before the Friday night game when T.C. Williams was playing football. So that was a very favorite memory of mine. And Ruby Tucker was very instrumental in that. And it was a close bond. And I think I was just so proud that the church extended that hospitality and fellowship to the football team.
That brings to mind, there used to be a couples club called Y'alls. Some of you will remember that. The yawl was a small boat. I'd never heard of that, but it was part of the National Mariners group. Anyway, we took on several service projects, and we decided to take children from Junior Village. Do any of you remember Junior Village? They were children that had no other home. And it turned out that day turned out to be a terribly rainy day, so we could not take the children out. We brought them back to Fellowship Hall, and there was a woman in the kitchen doing the flower arrangements for church the next day. And she reported the fact that our couples group had brought African American children into the church. And she was one upset person. And Cliff Johnson said, that's just fine. That's fine. Thank goodness.
So on the question of sports, I mean, sports are unifying. It can be unifying. They can be dividing as well. But how much do you remember, and sorry, Maggie, this is before you, but how much do you remember the game, the championship? Did that change things the way the movie and our remembering of it seems to indicate? Or did it register that this was some kind of achievement of cohesion, of community at the time? Or are we remembering it with that lens and it wasn't so much the reality at the time? Just how was it in 1972 after we were state champions? Oh,
I
right.
was in college at that time.
Yeah.
So I don't really know, but
You can speak to it. Yeah, I wasn't here. The game was played in Roanoke,
yeah.
and Connie got in his car and drove down there. It was a big deal. And as I said before, the school board did not say you have to win that state championship or Boone, you're out of here. That just happened. It was a wonderful, lucky thing, but it was a big deal. In 1988, the state championship, the Titans won. T.C. Williams won the state championship in football. I didn't remember that. Yeah.
Was he the coach then? I'm sorry.
No, Tom.
Are you still teaching? Here, can I run this to him? Go ahead.
In was it 1988? Yeah, our son was a junior at TC Williams, and he played on the TC Williams football team. And of course, the 71 championship was sort of an icon, a goal. But TC had gone through a lot of rough years in terms of football. And on Josh's team, the two offensive tackles were African American. The right guard was Nasser Romaine, Syrian, and the left guard was a Filipino. And sometimes center was our son. And so it was, the championship game was very dramatic, but certainly nothing like 71. But since TC had not had a championship since 71 until that year, it was obviously a very big deal. And I think it helped. We would have over to our house sometimes to watch the videos of the games, and the players would be in our basement taking a look at those games. But and TC is what, undefeated this year?
Last two in a row.
Uh-oh, sorry about that. But
They were undefeated. Prue, just a second. I got you, Prue.
I was just wondering how things were going now in TC Williams. I was thinking because you don't just have black and white, you have Near Easterners and Hispanics. And then there was this incident at McDonald's a few years ago where this Hispanic guy was stabbed to death right there outside of McDonald's. And then the school had to put all sorts of restrictions on when they went to lunch and stuff so they wouldn't all hoard out together at the same time and head for McDonald's. I was wondering how it is over there now.
Thanks, Prue. That's a good question. Actually, I'm going to ask a question. Susan, when you were in school, was it open campus, meaning you could leave for lunch? No, Maggie, was it? So okay, so that's new, right? That's new as open campus. Here,
No, it's not new.
then somebody fill that in.
No, and Connie was very much against that. He felt it would just open up for all kinds of problems. And it's been borne out. Yeah.
It is not open campus.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Gotcha. So, I mean, I asked a question, or I asked a question that overstepped Prue's question. Does anyone want to answer Prue's? I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Catherine, should we take it as parents?
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead. Or I had a different question.
Oh, okay. Well, also, I have twins like Catherine does, who are juniors in high school.
Sorry, Patrick.
And one of the things that is striking is you saw the new building that was built behind the Bradley Center, the Minnie Howard, which is the Minnie Howard campus now of AC, which is actually one of four technically. If you were here last week, we heard about the four campuses of the one high school. And so just logistically, the school system is wrestling with wanting to hold on to its oneness. It's, Alexandria had, coming out of this experience, a value of having one high school. not a high school for the West End or a high school for the East End, because there's a desire to have the same opportunity for all. What is happening, though, and what is bearing out, is that a certain segment of the school system is more often in the new building than the old, and it breaks down a little bit on racial lines there. They go back and forth during the day, so that's kind of the openness now. So you'll have kids who go from the King Street campus to the Minnie Howard campus. And so there's a lot of back and forth then. And so they're trying to wrestle with that. Like, how do we just pull this off logistically? It's getting better. I'm going to give them credit. I mean, I think the first year was hard, but I think they're starting to figure it out.
Thank you. What? Okay. Catherine, after you, I'm giving it to Maggie.
Well, maybe I'll sneak my question in first too. So part of what I would say to that question is that it's a huge school. It has over 4,000 kids. And the Alexandria as a city, and I said this last week too, is very wealthy, right? The median income in Alexandria is about 50% higher than the national average, but nearly half of students in ACPS are eligible for a free or reduced lunch. And I looked that up. I look it up each year to see what that is. And that means like a family of 5 that has an income of like less than $60,000 a year, right? It's a really low threshold, and it's a really high percentage of the kids in our public schools. A lot of our schools have community eligibility, meaning anybody can get a free breakfast or lunch, which is terrific, and which is a choice the district has made. But I think a lot of the problems that exist now, they don't exist because there's like racial conflict at our high school. They exist because it's a really large school filled with like 13 to 18-year-olds. And there's a lot of challenges in large urban schools, especially where there is like a fair amount of something like poverty, right? So it's a complicated school system. And I think they're doing great. My kids have a wonderful experience there, and there's problems like there are everywhere, but I think it's still a challenging school district, but maybe for different reasons than it was challenging, 50 or 60 years ago. And I'm going to sneak in my question was for Susan, because you mentioned being here for a military move, and we just rewatched Remember the Titans because my youngest had never seen it. And 2 of the white students in the movie, I'm not sure if this is 100% accurate, but I think that the individual stories are pretty accurate. 2 of the white students who had the easiest time, or were portrayed as having the easiest time getting along with their Black teammates, were military kids, and arrived to the scene late. Like, they weren't kids who grew up in Alexandria. They were military kids who were drafted here, and they were like, well, we go along, we get along, right? And so I wondered what your experience was with that, and whether the sort of substantial military presence in Alexandria had an impact on this whole experience.
Thank you. All right.
So growing up in a military family, yes, we were exposed to practically everything wherever we lived. And it wasn't an issue for me at all when I moved here. In fact, as I was looking through my yearbook, there was this young man, Melvin Wanzer, and he lived on Quaker Lane there. And he was a basketball player. He was one of our star basketball players. And he signed my yearbook. And it was a very endearing comment, and looking back on it now, yeah, I didn't think it was a big deal, but maybe now it is. Jane?
Well, keep in mind that the school system lost between 4,000 and 5,000 people after the integration, because people did move to Fairfax County or send their kids to private schools. And little by little, as the schools showed that they could provide good educations, the schools started filling up. But during that time, at least 2 or 3 of the elementary schools were sold off because we had lost so much population.
Yeah, so also I just wanted to talk about the school more recently in the past few years, and I think one of the things that I'm most proud of as a graduate of this school is actually the fact that it is not named TC Williams anymore. I'm very proud of that. We are one city. We are Alexandria City High School. Obviously, I was not around back then, but TC Williams did not support integration, and that is not something that we should be celebrating. And so I'm very proud to be a graduate of a school that recognizes that and changed the name to Alexandria City High School.
Oh, does anybody know the extent to which white flight is still a problem in Alexandria?
we called it, yeah. Good question.
Well,
Susan?
okay.
I mean, that includes those who go to Catholic schools instead, Jewish schools instead, private schools instead, Episcopalian schools instead.
Just from my own personal experience and in my particular neighborhood on my street, my children at the time were the only children that went to the public school system.
That's what, 20 years?
Well, my oldest is 45,
At
42.
least 20 years ago.
Yeah, right. And I think it still exists personally because people are afraid to send their children to the school. Pardon me?
I think there's some of that, but I want to make
Sure.
related to that.
We'll go to Joanne, and then we're going to have to wrap up here soon.
I'll be quick. I think in 1971, when we experienced the Titans, there were the racial issues were the prominent issues. Now we have socioeconomic issues where people can afford, there's such a divergence of what people can afford and what they can't afford. So, but it's interesting thing is the children are so wonderful about how they manage that and get along. We have a lot to learn from our children.
All right, Melinda, I think you'll be the last one. Is that all right?
Yeah, so I think that to the white flight issue, my impression is that it's less of an issue now than it was definitely 20 years ago. And I, just as an anecdote, my daughters graduated with Maggie in the class of 2016, and they both said that when they got to college, that they were better prepared for college than their peers. And so I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding in the community that you can't get a good education at AC High School. And I think for the students who take advantage of the opportunities that are there, it's really an unparalleled opportunity. And just as when I was the president of the PTA Council of Alexandria, I actually looked very deeply into the question of whether there was a school division somewhere else in the country that had similar demographics to us. And by that, I mean, I just looked it up here. We've got students from 121 countries speaking 127 languages. Okay, so you've got that. You've got the socioeconomic diversity. And I could not find a comparable school district in the country that had those same kinds of challenges. And people like to compare Alexandria to Arlington, and those two school divisions are very different from each other. Arlington is 75% white and maybe a third free and reduced lunch. So they're not really comparable. And I do think that there is a unique quality to Alexandria schools. And I don't use the word unique very often because it's truly a overused word, but it is it is an experience that brings value to the student in so many different ways, as Maggie described. So.
And our panel has brought value to each and every one of us in many ways. So panelists, thank you so much. Jane, Susan, Maggie, incredibly blessed to have your wisdom today. Thank you all so much. Worship's at 11.